Stevens and Pat Searles are excused. Is that working?
I just need to find the record button. I think they might have moved it here. Okay, record on this computer.
Recording in progress.
No.
Okay, do you want to start over?
Okay. Called meeting to order of June 19th. Should be noted that Commissioner Searles and Stevens are excused. Is there a motion to approve of the agenda and minutes? We can take
Motion.
Second. Moved and seconded to take C and D. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Regular business. Consideration and possible action on the report of the police department on the monthly traffic enforcement unit safety plan. Lieutenant?
Well, we do have small issue with our traffic unit. We've got one traffic unit officer out on leave, and then we had another one who broke his hand while fighting with a suspect on duty. So he's gonna be out for a few more weeks. So we are cutting half the traffic enforcement for this last month and going into June here. So our numbers are down a little bit, but we're also having a hard time getting officers to accept the overtime to work OWI task force and seatbelt enforcement. That's just part of everything that everybody's dealing with in terms of staffing and numbers, and there's plenty of overtime to go around in other areas. So numbers are down a little bit. They're not terribly down, but you'll notice a dip in the number of traffic stops for the month, that's for sure. In terms of major accidents for the month, in May, we did have the fatality at the Nitschke Bridge up on Main Street. 39-year-old woman was driving eastbound in Dousman. She drove straight over the curb off the road. She hit that area basically where the Twin Tower statues used to be. Mm-hmm. Went right over the revetment stone and into the water. She did survive the impact. She died from the drowning. The car sank, actually pretty rapidly. And then she was recovered by the dive team. And they were able to get a boat out there, and they ended up raising the car.
Drugs or alcohol involved?
Alcohol was definitely a factor. She was intoxicated, had a heavy day of drinking, and that's the only major injury or fatality that we had for the month. Let me think if there's anything else. That's about it.
Okay.
We are seeing a little bit of a reduction now that numbers, the blocking of the frontage road over Packerland and Mason. We're starting to see the numbers of accidents over there decline. I think there's only been one accident. Yeah, he's confirming only one accident in that area, whereas around the same time we would have had several. So you're starting to see it on the heat map. It's still showing up as a hot spot only because it takes data from before the traffic barricades were put in place. But if you look at the data from a smaller segment from after the barricades were put into place, you're noticing that the traffic accidents are going down. So it seems like that's a good move. And
Do we know the
right
construction completion date on that?
I believe it is in August or September.
Oh, well, it's coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it if it's actually a little sooner. I just know that there's some equipment that's taking some time. You know, it's very standard in the industry for some of the signal equipment to come in on time.
Okay.
Because there's going to be a rapid flashing beacon that's going to go in at the mid-block crosswalk where the new access is right by the TC and the UTC access. So that all the road work is in, and you'll see the bases that are there, but the actual flashing units are not installed yet.
Okay. Good.
And then I think it'll take a little bit longer for the roundabout at Trojan. I think that's
next year.
next year. So
Okay, any questions of the lieutenant? Dan, do you have any questions?
Nope.
Okay, is there a motion to receive and place on file the report of the police department?
I'll make a motion to receive and place on file.
Okay, it's
Second.
been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Hey.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you. Number 2, this was held over from the last meeting, consideration of possible action and a request by Alderman Galvin to change the two-way stop condition on Irwin Avenue and Eliza Street to four-way stop condition. Dave, you want to take this?
I sure can. I don't think I have anything in this one per se, but the intersection itself, I did drive through it today. From, I guess, a motorist perspective and putting my engineering hat on driving through it, I did not see anything that stuck out to me that was, any sort of geometric deficiencies with the intersection. Sometimes at locations, you'll drive, on a location where they want the stop, 2 to 4-way stop, the through movement, where it sometimes feels like you should stop, or, the volume of traffic maybe is more balanced and things. I didn't notice any of that. I did notice some recent trees that were removed pretty close to the intersection, which is very common. We've had the emerald ash borer, kind of ravage our city quite a bit. And so it looked like actually a couple of trees from the intersection, there was actually some of those removed, which actually improved the sight lines. So I don't know if the complaint came in before or after those trees were gone. I just know that forestry is actively removing a lot of those trees. But on a cursory level, when I drove through it, I didn't see anything operationally wrong, geometrically wrong. I did do a cursory evaluation of 5-year crash history. I did find one back in April of 2018. However, that had a speeding and impairment flag on it. And then it just says possible injury, so we can't confirm or deny necessarily an injury, but it was listed in the lowest category. So any sort of change to traffic control really would, I don't think would have prevented such a crash like that. The driver condition, that was the #1 reason for that crash. So I really don't know what to, other than that, what to provide on input. It kind of seemed like a very quiet neighborhood
And he
intersection.
didn't, because I live right over there, so when I saw this one, I was wondering if Galvin was gonna have like their reasoning, because there are other 4-ways in our neighborhood really close to there, so I don't know.
Earlier, for one.
Yeah, so part of me is wondering if
It's
it's,
1 block to the north.
yeah, is it because
Stop
there's the
as well.
4-way, the other way, or are they people just kind of flying through, or are people stopping anyway? Because I bike and walk my dogs, and I don't think a 4-way would hurt. Partially just because there's other 4-ways like close, and it's the one that isn't the 4-way, so I don't know if it's just confusing people. So I was curious what he was gonna say their reasoning was.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard anything from
Okay.
him, nor did the communication really express any reasons behind it. A lot of times, as being on this commission, we get speeding complaints, and it's typically a request for stop conditions to try to calm speeding. But
Yeah, because I
it's
think
not
in
really a
both
good
directions
way to do
there's
it.
a 4-way. The stops are 4-ways. Like if you go up to Roosevelt, that's a 4-way also, like right there. And so I think it's just that it's surrounded by 4-ways, and it's the non-4-way would be my guess. But as I said,
And the
it's-
trouble is though, if you get too many
it's just a
stopping,
constant stop.
that's when people start to speed through the stop
Well,
areas.
The key to that, it's not necessarily the frequency, it's the number of unwarranted ones. So I don't know what's all going on at these other intersections.
And the trees were blocking the view.
Yeah.
So that's why part of me was
But
kind
now
of
it's-
hoping he
yeah,
would
it's
be
kind of
there.
remedied now, so.
So
Yeah,
it's-
that's why I was saying earlier,
Yeah.
I have no idea when, the complainant came to the
Mhm.
Alder. Obviously, it's been a couple of months because this was a postponed item.
Right.
So it's really hard to know what the actual complaint is. It's just.
But you haven't heard from Galvin
No.
since then?
no,
Okay.
no.
Is there a motion to receive and place on file?
I'll make that motion.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
nay. The ayes have it.
Yeah, hopefully that tree thing just takes care of it.
Well, yeah, that's a problem, number of places, unfortunately. Excuse me. Item 3, initial request, consideration and possible action by the request of Alderman Scannell to study and remove traffic control signal at the intersection of Dawson Street and Oneida Street.
Yes, this one is somewhat of an interesting one, as in, many of you know about the signal that we removed a little over a year ago, which is really one intersection to the east. Now that intersection, the reason that that was removed, that came from staff based off of a crash problem that we thought that actually the traffic signal was creating, which I think we were correct on that, because since we changed to a four-way stop, although we had some compliance issues early on, which is to be expected, the type of crash that was happening there has gone away. So it's a success story, I guess you'd say, and the change of intersection traffic control. Now, move one intersection to the west, the one that's on the agenda tonight, that intersection actually handles less traffic than Dawson and Gray did. No. So when we went through all the warrants for a signal at Dawson and Gray, obviously that one didn't meet the warrants, so we know this one won't either. So that would definitely, and that's only one aspect though when it comes down to evaluation of intersection traffic control. One thing to note here is that the north leg of this intersection really is almost kind of like a T. It's not a T, you go one block to the north to Division Street and then basically that ends right there. So you don't really have a lot of traffic coming in on the north leg, so it kind of functions as a T intersection. Looking at 5-year crash history, it looks to me like we've had 5 occur, 2 possible injuries, 1 suspected minor injury, 2 property damage, only crashes. So for a signalized intersection, I kind of think that's more on the low side, if you're only averaging 1 crash per year. And they're all on the lower end of, we're not seeing any serious injuries or anything like that added. So does that mean the signal's working or not working? To me it means that, if we don't have a severe crash problem, that it could be helping. So that's where a study would actually prove the necessity of the signal, and we would do an evaluation to see if a four-way stop would actually keep the crash rate, I guess you'd say.
How would you do that?
That or lower. We study the type of crash. I'm just giving you generic information about them. We would actually pull up the crash reports and look at the manner of the crash and see if it really would be indicative to the presence of a signal or maybe a presence of a stop sign. There's certain type, like frequency of rear end crashes, you'll see that at signals. When we go from a four-way to a signalized intersection, you'll usually see an uptick in rear end type crashes, and there's others. But we look at those types of things just to see if we think that what's there is working, or if what's there is maybe is contributory towards the problem, which is, like I said, we found at Dawson Gray. So we don't know until we really start digging into it.
So you want this to go back to staff?
That's the only way we could really
further study?
Come up with a recommendation. At this point in time, it's cursory at all. When I look at it, it does seem like we've got some pretty low volumes that a four-way would probably be able to handle it. And again, I'm just doing a comparison to Dawson Gray. If that can handle it for the volume, this one certainly could. So I'm just strictly speaking from volumes, but we look at other things as well. So the only you really have 2 options at this point: is to either receive and place and file a request, or if there's some merit behind it, which there could be, you'd have to refer to staff for study.
What's your pleasure?
Dave, I'm curious, can I just double check on some traffic count information if you've got it? How is the counts comparable on Gray to Oneida?
They were significantly less. It wasn't something that was close. Obviously, the Dowsman Street numbers are going to be very similar because they're just 1 block apart, so the through traffic is going to be similar. It's the side street traffic. When you're on Oneida Street, as we know, Oneida Street goes through multiple communities, including Ashwaubenon, where it's probably its busiest. But once you start getting north of Mason Street, it starts to go down, and then once you get to Shawano, that's where it really changes, between Shawano and Dousman.
Yeah,
Anyone going.
I would expect them to really drop off there.
Yeah, I mean, I could actually pull up the website for DOT. We can actually look at the ADTs if we want real quick, if you're interested.
Yeah, I was just curious. I mean, I know that area pretty well. And frankly, I'm kind of surprised that there are lights there, but I've ridden up and down Dousman a number of times on my bike, and it does kind of seem unnecessary, but I don't see a reason why we couldn't study it and prove that.
Right, yeah, I'm pretty close here to getting the traffic count, so let's just see what they say. And again, the numbers you're gonna see here.
Agenda you want to talk about?
Next one.
Next up.
The numbers you're gonna see here are going to be ADT, so average annual daily traffic numbers.
What did we do?
It's amazing
I
technology.
know.
Dousman Street and Fisk, and Dousman and Oneida. Okay, so you can see Dousman right here. So between Dousman and Great, we have 4,400 vehicles. 4,400 actually isn't all that much when it comes down to a minor arterial or a collector street.
Yeah.
There's a lot of streets, like even Gray Street right over here, 3,500, not that far. I mean, if you look at this number, say 20 years ago, and even just prior to when Dousman interchanged with, which is now Interstate 41, this number was probably 2 or 3 times higher. It was significantly different, but once that access to 41 changed, we saw a dramatic reduction in ADT on Dousman Street. So, but as I was saying about Oneida Street, so you can see, once you are, here's Lambeau Field, so you got 12,700 over by,
Ooh.
Big jump.
and then it reduces down to half once you get north of Lombardi Avenue.
Yeah.
So, you're in that 6,000 to 7,000 range. You get up to West Mason, and I guess I was wrong, it's slightly higher. It looks like 7,700.
That's due to the schools.
Yeah, you get that, and our shop is there, the West Side Shop for Public Works, and we have vehicles coming in and out of there all the time. And then here you go, once you get north of Shawano, it goes down to 3,400. So,
Quite a drop.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you see 2,700 here, but a lot of these vehicles are coming to Reed Street, Oregon, and I think the reason you see a lot of reduction, like I said, it kind of functions like a T intersection, so you really have a trickle of traffic north of Dousman Street. So, I mean, I think there's definitely some warrant to look at this, because it's obviously a traffic signal, costs money to own and maintain, and they're not cheap. They definitely aren't cheap. So the electrical cost per month, knockdowns, anything that goes wrong inside the controller, the equipment and the technology is not cheap, So when you remove them and put in what would be appropriate traffic control, if there is any at this location, you definitely could see some reduction in overall cost to the city. But at the end of the day, I don't think that should be your number one thing to look at. Obviously we want to make sure that the intersection is right sized for the traffic control. So if the signal's needed, it should be there. So we don't know at this point in time, so it's really up to the commission if they want to receive places on file or if they want staff to look at it.
Make a motion to have the staff do the study.
I would agree.
Okay, it's been moved in second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you.
I do feel like I should mention, I know right there the intersection at the end of the T, that's at 1158 for Division. I know it's just a regular stop sign over there. Would it be worth looking into one of the illuminated ones for that?
Which location is this?
At sorry, I meant to say it as we were motioning, but so at Oneida and Division, there's the stop sign that's there.
Right.
I know if we get rid of that indicator light, that does take away some of the alertness some people might have. So looking into an illuminated stop sign where your mouse would be.
Right in here?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a one-way.
Yep.
I mean, we reserve those, any sort of attention grabbers is, any sort of above the average.
Mhm.
We really look for things like non-compliance, crashes that could be resolved by enhancing security of the
Mhm.
device. There's a host of things. I can tell you anecdotally that I've never heard of a problem at that location.
No.
I understand what you're saying, that if there's a change of intersection control at Dawson and Oneida, does that change what happens there? It could or it couldn't. There's other things that you can do, like adding stop ahead signs and things like that, flagging and measures like that,
Yep.
rather than going to, all the way up to a flashing condition. I mean, some of the locations that have been used, and this one's actually one I'm gonna mention, it's not really a city one, but it's one that I know we got calls on a lot, was Wood Lane and Hazelwood. And
Okay.
ultimately, it's a county road, and the county ended up putting in we call them blinker stops.
Okay.
And that did seem to do some improvement. I go through that intersection almost daily. And there was a stopping issue there, and it's a four-way stop, so,
Okay.
when you have a crash rate that shows that if you can enhance conspicuity, and things like that. But anecdotally, we don't like to just put them in without a study, because,
Makes
just like
sense.
the signal itself, it's equipment, equipment goes wrong. I know that, battery technology, although it gets better and better every year, typically in our cold climates, that's where we find the issues, because something
Oh,
like
yeah.
this would be a solar installation. We don't usually do a hardwire
Yep.
electrical installation at something like this.
Yeah,
Um,
the tree cover that was over there was really kind of throwing a flag in the head where it's
That
like,
too.
I don't know if that would even work. But
That
it was just
too.
one of those, I know we, said, we voted for a study on it, and it was like totally down. But I want to make sure I at least asked about it, just because I know the people at that property, and,
Okay. Good.
Yeah, oh yeah, you can see that tree coverage there.
Yep.
So yeah, that definitely would play in. Yes, you can see, because in southern exposure is usually where
Yep.
we point those, and it's pointing right at the tree.
exactly.
So it might not actually be a good location then, just based off of its, the surroundings.
Yeah, I just would have felt remiss if I wouldn't have brought it up.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's okay. Number 4, consideration of possible action on the request of Alderman Scannell on changing the parking availability on Cedar Street between Webster and Clay Street, particularly marking a no parking zone during the day across from the driveway from Riverside Welding, and opening other spaces that are currently posted restricted parking. I do note that we have a guest that would like to speak on this subject, but Dave, do you want to first of all describe the situation?
Hey Dave, can you share your screen by chance?
Yeah, I can do that.
Oh, we don't want to see a video of Dan there.
No, that's what we're trying to get rid of, no. So let's see, share screen, I think if I just hit share and then go to, I believe it's gonna be Google Earth Pro. Let's share that. Can you see?
There you go, thank you.
So let's just go to Cedar Street. Okay, so just to kind of give you some context, here's Webster Avenue as it crosses the East River. So you have University here, you have Main Street. As many of you know, the 1001 Club was a popular club for many years. It closed down due to a fire, but recently reopened. And their parking has always been somewhat of a challenge. I know from firsthand experience, because I've eaten there before, not since it's reopened, but that the parking is, I believe, oriented in the one-way direction, so you kind of have to come in right from Cedar Street and then access the parking here. Or actually,
Then exit on Main?
and then exit out to
Yep.
Main Street, yeah. I don't know if that really has changed at all.
No, I was
It's the
there, it's the same.
So it's okay, so that's all the same. So that may be part of what's going on. As the request itself says, Riverside Welding, which is this building, has been asking for some. Now, this access right here, I was out today actually looking at this. And this actually has, and maybe it'll show on here if I do a street view. Oh boy, oh, here we go. So, you can see this now, this is actually, there's grade separation here, so this is actually an old driveway, but this is elevated by, I don't know, a foot at least. So, I'm not sure if this is per se the issue, but I cannot imagine how a truck could actually load there. I mean, and it was open all the way today, and it looked like there was a lot of stuff in there. Well, you can see here, there's stuff. So it didn't look like it was actual loading area. And looking back over
Is that
this way.
streetcar?
Yeah, this is an actual former rail line, just probably a spur line that was.
Oh my
abandoned.
gosh.
Yeah, no, the rails never removed. So, but coming to the corner here, then you'll see this curb ramp here is actually relatively new now, so it's replaced. But you'll see here now, instead of this being boarded up, there's an actual door here. There's a brown door here that I'm presuming now works.
Now, this is the back of the restaurant?
Yeah, this
That's
is
where
the back,
fire-
the
that's
north
where
end of
fire
that
was.
building.
Okay.
And then you'll see, this is gonna be the access into the 1001's drive, or the parking lot is right here.
Right there is the problem, right there,
Right.
this spot.
Yeah.
As the semis come out of
Excuse me.
there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
have to open the.
We have to
door
open the floor first.
Yeah, just formality. So this goes in, yeah, you can see, you're correct on the one-way angle here, so, and you can see there's stalls on both sides. So right now, I believe the parking hasn't really changed over here, so you have a no parking here to corner with a left arrow on it, right here. So I checked out both of these areas, so you got a little spot right here, and then you got a little spot right here, and we actually put our car in there. That we've got an average size SUV. You can park, we were able to legally park here, it was tight, but you could fit one, I guess you'd say standard passenger vehicle in this spot, while being within, meeting the 4-foot rule for driveways. This one right here we violated, there was no way we could fit in this one, so this is, unless you're driving a Mini Cooper or a motorcycle, it's pretty much an illegal spot. Now over here, there was actually a car parked here when we showed up. So, right now, that would be available.
This is a two-way street, right?
Yep, it's a two-way street, correct. And there's actually parking over here, you'll see, this is a no parking here to corner, so up to the stop sign over here. And then there's a 2-hour zone that in essence goes all the way down to Clay Street, with the exception of at this driveway, there's no parking between signs right at the driveway. And I believe this is the primary one that Riverside Welding uses, at least, you can see it's more of a modern access for trucks to load and things. So you'll see the 2-hour here goes to the right, or actually I should say to the left, so you got a little bit of 2-hour parking here. This is all no parking here, most likely at the request of Riverside. And then you come back over this way, and I believe it's kind of tucked in these trees, yep. And then the 2-hour starts back up again. And then you'll see over here, we have all no parking along here. And I believe, which one does that say? I think this one says no parking anytime, or is it here at corner? Oh, it's an anytime double arrow, so there's no parking, no parking. And then no parking here to corner. Now, like I said, there's really just the one spot here that you can park. And this spot right here, I don't really recommend anyone parking, and anyone that parks there, if parking comes by, they're gonna get a citation anyway. So.
Because they'd be over the curb line, right? Or the
Correct.
driveway line?
Yeah, we have a 4-foot,
4 foot?
ordinance citywide, that you can
Okay.
park 4 feet in a driveway. So.
I guess I'm curious if you're always there, how many people are parking there anyway?
Right here?
Yeah. I see people block my driveway like during Bellin, good luck.
Mhm.
So I don't think people always pay attention, so I don't know.
Right.
I am curious to hear from our guest.
Yeah, it would be definitely good, because obviously, we can only know from the request itself
Yeah.
that, of Randy speaking on behalf of Riverside Welding, so my only presumption is that they're having an issue over here, because I think they have all the restrictions in place on the north side. So my only guess is that they're having issues on the south side. I don't know what those are. Randy didn't explain what they are, and he said he had to be at a different meeting tonight, so I don't know, and possibly our guests can share maybe some
I wonder-
insight on that.
I wonder if it
But,
has to do with semis pulling in and or out of their driveway.
Right. When we were
Well-
there, we did see there was a truck here, a larger box size van, trying to pull in, and he was waiting for some other traffic. It's actually a little busier back there than you think. I mean, just with all the work activity, and you got Badger Wholesale. If you continue down, then obviously the Palms campus. So it's you know, it's a busy work commercial area. But I guess with that, I don't really have anything else. I'd be interested to.
Is there a motion to open the floor for comments by the public?
Motion to open the floor.
I'll second that.
Moved in second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, the ayes have it. Would you like to, you can come up, we're kind of
Sure.
informal here. If you'd
Okay.
like to come up and sit down.
More formal than I thought.
Yeah,
Right, right.
they make us follow
yeah,
something.
Just
a little
give
bit.
your name and your
Yeah,
address
Steve-
for the,
Steve Schneider, 2031 Ledgehaven Court, De Pere. I own that whole block to the right, so including the 1001 Club. And so I met with Randy and with Riverside and with my warehouse folks. And right now, the issue from Riverside is that they bring their semis out, and whether they're going right or left, they need the spot across from the driveway to turn. So
This one?
so when they come out of here, they turn this way, and if there's a car here, it's problematic. Or if they turn here, if there's a car here, there's a problematic. And we actually took a semi out and played with it to see how much room they needed. Back up on your original thing with the loading dock, they don't use that very often, but they do use it on occasion. Yeah, so sometimes when they bring equipment in and out, you know, Riverside said maybe once every 2 or 3 months, they'll bring something in or out of there. And people aren't illegally parking here right now. They said they have no issue here, they have an issue over there. From my perspective, I sort of looked at it and just said, let's start over and look at what we need and what's working and what isn't working. And from my perspective, I'm trying to push my employees out onto the street so that customers get up closer, because anybody who's been there doesn't want to walk a block. So what I would like to do is, you know, and right now my employees are parking over here, and sometimes customers. There's one little old lady that always illegally parks by that spot because she doesn't like getting in and out of the parking lot. I'm curious, we're repaving all of this, and one of the things I'd like to do that I'd like your advice on is I would like to enter from Main and exit to Cedar, because it just makes more sense to me. And I just hold my breath watching people come out, because you really, there's a little, let's see where, I'm sorry, lost my bearings here.
I wanted to show Main Street what you were talking about. So here's your parking lot right here, and here's
Yeah,
Cedar.
so there's now little concrete things here, so, yeah, and this tree, so there's traffic coming, and you're just sort of inching out, you're in traffic before you see it. So sooner or later, there's gonna be accidents here. I'd like to direct people in this way and out that way. There's, 36 spots here. When we repave it next month, I re-diagonal it the other way. From my perspective, and this is my operation, and I may have a couple of employees that will say that they don't like parking here primarily because they want to illegally park there, and they're lazy sometimes on the parking because they're supposed to be parking over here. But what I'd like to do is open this up so my 1001 Club employees can park here, leaving all of this open, and just make everything from that driveway to Webster, no parking, 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. And Riverside said that's more than they're asking for. They would be happy just with those couple of spots across the street so their semis can turn. The reason I would do the whole thing is because while nobody's complained yet, I'm anticipating it will happen because Badger pulls in there and Palms pulls in there. And that's a real tough corner where there's people parked close to the corner. So, you know, my suggestion would be that from here to the alley be no parking Monday through Friday, 6 to 5. And this side as well, even though they don't have an issue here right now, because I think that when the semis pull up here and they're taking a right onto Webster, if there's a car parked between that loading area and Webster, which there's a spot there, it's rough if I were driving the semi. Well, if I was driving the semi, it would be rough in general. But, so, you know, I would just, you know, go from the alley. But then I'd like to open this up so that employees can park there during the day, leaving the lunch hour. And again, the overflow is on Fridays. Everybody, you know, comes for their perch plates at noon on Fridays. We're getting more of a Monday crowd now because we've opened 7 days a week. That, you know, so nowhere else is open on Monday generally. So, you know, we're getting that. So then that fills in. But again, I'm willing to be a team player and work with the neighborhood and just, you know, let this, you know, during the day. Now, weekends is a different story. We need these parking lots on Friday and Saturday nights. But again, Riverside and Pops, they're, you know, they close at 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon, and there's no trucks coming or going after that. So when I need those parking spots, it's fine. So yeah, that would be my ask, I guess.
Who owns this building here?
I
Is that
do.
Palms?
No, I own that.
You do? Okay.
I own this whole block.
Oh.
My goal is to tear this down and put 140 market rate apartments back here, tear this building down and put a little fountain and a really cool area in there. Probably do underground parking here that would connect back up to the 1001. We're looking at a little room in the back of here, and then restore these storefronts. So I'm working with Jeff Merkus and with the mayor and stuff on opening this back up. Because those old storefronts are still up there, they're just covered over with that crappy drive-it stuff.
The apartments and everything, very cool project, side note.
Yeah, and you know, and I talked to Ted and Jeff Miller, they own the land that Badger's on and this whole area up to Riverside, and they said they didn't have a problem. Jeff said if I felt he needed, he'd come and talk to this group as well. Probably they may move out of here at some point, and Jeff and I do things together, so we may look at something across the street with the city's putting that walkway on the other side of the river, so that makes that land sort of a cool area for development.
Is there currently anyone in those buildings, the white building?
These buildings?
Yeah.
I assemble towers and fiber kits and stuff in there, so we, instead of doing out in the field, we do all our splicing inside of here. Makes it quicker and more cost effective.
So any sort of parking restrictions wouldn't affect those people?
No, I got enough spots right here for those people, and then I got spots on Clay Street, and Clay Street has parking along there. At some point, I may come, there's two things in the future I might come back to the city. One is I'd like eventually to vacate this alley that's in the middle of the property. And the other thing is, there's all old, you know, it makes it look like you can go into the building at these doors, but Mary Morgan Printing has closed that off for the last 30 years. And I'd like to put curb back in there because people sort of park there, but it probably shouldn't park there because it looks like you shouldn't park there. There's a lot of, you know, uncertainty. Nobody ever gets ticketed back there. I should, you know, knock on wood because, you know, nobody's probably looking back there because there hasn't been issues. Now there'll be a lot more traffic. Everybody will be looking back there. But
Just on the side.
But on this side,
On the
yeah.
side note, you can do that.
Okay, cool.
At the end of the day, that does become the property owner's responsibility because it was a driveway section, and oftentimes if things get problematic, the city will actually issue to actually close it yourself, you know, to have it done. So, but it is actually,
Close it.
just as FYI, that is
Yeah.
something that.
Do I have to get a permit for that?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
cool. I'll do that.
What's the building between 1001 and is that old antique place or?
No, Ralph's is up here. This is
Oh.
Link Academy. This is a
Oh, yeah.
school we set
Oh,
up
yeah.
that takes kids that get expelled from the public school system and gives them really intense, been controversial in some circles, but I think they have a really good success rate, so from, but I'm not involved in that other than renting. This is the Ralph's, and there's gonna be a little woodworking shop going in here, and then this is gonna be a ghost kitchen. And someday I would like to run like a drive-through where you can pick up food at that ghost kitchen, so there'll be a couple of different venues in the ghost kitchen.
Ralph's is closed, right?
Yeah.
Ralph's is closed, Ralph and I.
Oh,
Quick question for you. If you would mark that parking
be a
lot,
great
I
start.
know you had said that that tree was an issue though. I mean, but if they're gonna be coming in and out, you know, let's just say it's eastbound or westbound Main Street, so it'd be coming right in, right out driveway access is what it becomes, because I believe that's a full-blown median head on Main Street.
Right.
You know, between that car lot.
Yep.
So, yeah, you really only have two movements that are gonna be possible there. But the right out, so is that tree is yours though, correct?
That tree is mine. It's the only green thing on the property. I'd like to keep it.
So, but I mean, if indeed you would go ahead and change your parking lot configuration, and that becomes a concern, is that something you'd be willing to part with?
I don't think I'd have to part with this, would I?
What if it's blocking vision of westbound Main Street? So anyone coming out of your parking lot, what if they have trouble seeing around it?
Well, they'd be coming in here.
Yeah, they're all just coming in now.
But so you're saying it would just be an entrance only, you would not be able to exit at all?
I don't want to exit all.
Okay.
No,
I
exit
think
on
it's
Cedar.
dangerous exiting.
Okay, so
on
it'd be
Main.
Yeah,
one
yeah.
way,
Yep.
okay, all right.
Yeah, looks
You're
like
making it safer.
It's the same way it is today, it's one way this way today, which, you know, what I do is I go this way anyway, just because I. can't
Well,
go
that's,
out here.
yeah, it's terrible trying to get out.
Yeah.
Main
No,
Street.
thanks for clarification.
even,
I have a question
even
about
looking at it, it's got like brick bollards
Yeah.
around it, around the.
Lieutenant?
safety
So-
eastbound of somebody turning left, not being able to turn left because traffic's backed up at the light. There's no,
They can't turn left.
Yeah, there's
It's
a
a full
center.
median.
oh, that one's got, okay,
Yeah,
that's the full.
so you're gonna have to come from the one way.
Okay, that makes more sense.
There's a cut in the median here to get into the alley, but I'd like to get rid of the alley and then whatever the city wants to do with the cut here. I don't like this cut because I don't like people jumping over here.
So here's,
How would eastbound traffic get in there?
so you can
Because-
see
They'd have
here,
to go out of their
U-turn.
way.
it's a full-blown median. So there, yeah, if there, any eastbound, this guy could not turn into here.
No.
See, I can tell you when I was there, I like that you're switching it or want to switch it.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be much safer.
It's safer, it's just common sense.
Plus more intuitive too, because I think a lot of people are confused on how to get to your parking, and they have to go around the block basically.
Yeah.
See, this is misleading because there's a parking with a thing here. Now, we're gonna repaint this when we redo it because that will direct people in this way. And the second entrance in the back would allow you to come from Cedar. So if you're going eastbound, you turn left on Clay and left on Cedar, and then you're able to park in the second entrance going the correct way as well.
Mhm. Okay, other questions? Comments?
No? Thank you for the detail.
Yeah.
I just mapped out a little bit of my proposed there to, I don't know that I have copies of this for everyone.
I don't need a copy. I get the gist of it.
Yeah.
I think you've thought it out pretty well.
Yeah,
Pretty thorough from what I've seen.
very good presentations.
So I guess when I look at this sheet, first thing that I see is removal of the 2-hour zone, is that correct?
Yeah, if we could remove the 2-hour zone in the green area, that would be helpful.
And 2-hour, just so you know, the primary function of a 2-hour zone is just to create turnover.
Yeah.
You know, it's like your next step before metering, which obviously that wouldn't work here, but, you know, so I mean, if there's a need for turnover, then you may want to reconsider keeping that time limited. If there is no concern, and it kind of sounds like you said, you know, with employees and stuff, that 2-hour probably wouldn't work anyway, so. I mean, and at the end of the day, a lot of these, the 2-hour zones that have gone in, happen on discussions like this. It's like, what's gonna work best for everyone out there? And as long as, you know, everyone else, you know, playing the sandbox nice and they're all good with it, you know, that's, you know, we don't have any issue with it then at city level. As a matter of fact, it's less for our parking division to have to
Right.
enforce.
I think it's a great
I do
proposal.
too.
Um,
Is there a motion to approve?
It's just
Can I-
because you talked to all the business
Wait.
owners.
Can I add one thing?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Dave, what is the exact proposal at this point, since I'm not there and I can't see everything?
Right, the proposal is to have no parking Monday through Friday, 7 AM to 5 PM on Cedar Street, so starting from Webster, both sides of the street. So on the north side of the street, so the Riverside Welding, it would be all the way from Webster to the main driveway, you know, where that fence opening is located.
Yep, yep,
And then continuing past that driveway would be all open parking, so in essence, no restrictions, no signs, all the way to Clay Street. And then on the south side of Cedar, it's in essence the same thing, but that no parking Monday through Friday, 7 to 5, would go all the way up to that alleyway access. And then past the alleyway to Clay Street would be all then unrestricted parking,
okay.
so.
And does it make sense though, Dave, on those couple of spots in between the driveway aprons on the south side of Cedar? Does it make any sense then to actually paint those yellow, just to make sure that people see that and are aware of that?
The painting, kind of like on our discussion with flashing stop signs, we typically only paint when we have problems. And the thing
Okay.
is that when we start a zone like this, there's always going to be a change, you know, any change is going to create some sort of non-compliance. It's just nature of the business.
Yeah.
So we're going to expect that. Now, due to our winter climate, we try to do our best when it comes down to signing. We want the signs to be able to do the bulk of the work here for the simple fact of yellow curb is just not visible in the wintertime. So we do our best with that. If we have problems, typically after enforcement efforts don't work, then we will consider the painting, but we don't want to just come out, especially on a 90-day trial. Last thing you want to do is you put some signs out there, we come back after the 90-day trial and go, whoa, okay, we need to adjust this, and all of a sudden you got paint down. Well, it's kind of hard after you got the paint down, you know, we don't want to have to go out and water blast or sandblast that off, so.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if this was gonna be a 90-day trial, so that answered it. Thank you.
Absolutely, I would
Always.
recommend a 90-day trial. If I could interject a couple of things here. So I want to just make sure where that alleyway access is located. I believe this is the alleyway? Yep. So, and, yep, okay, so that's good. That's exactly actually what we were thinking at staff level when I was out there. Even though this one spot you still can, you're gonna have some vehicles, like if someone comes in with a full-size Tahoe, they will be non-compliant. So I think it just makes sense to put the sign right here. We would change this sign then with a right arrow showing that no parking, 7 to 5, Monday through Friday. And then, in essence, get rid of these signs down this way. The only thing I would interject on the proposal at this point is possibly maybe maintaining some no parking here at corner zones. The only reason I say that is you got 0 setback at all these locations, and we already heard the issue already, that there is sometimes problems or concerns at, what are we here? Coming up over this way. Now, we do by default, because there's sidewalk here and a stop location, by default 15 feet from a safety zone is a no parking zone. The only thing I'm concerned about, if this becomes open parking, is blockage of that stop sign. That, to an unfamiliar motorist, could be problematic, and we don't want them going accidentally into a primary arterial street, which is North
Is the
Fourth Street.
stop sign attached to the building?
No.
What is it?
I think it actually might be in
It's
this
got all the
bollard.
ballards stuff.
I think it's
Oh, there
connected
it
to
is.
this bollard.
Oh,
Right behind it.
So, if this becomes no parking, you give someone, if you put that 15 feet in here and they're parked here, that stop sign is restricted. I usually recommend 2 car lengths, which is 50 feet as a minimum, so that people can see it. And to also provide for turning movements if, like, let's just say that there's, and I know you have entertainment at 10:01, like, let's just say that, something's done and everyone kind of has a mass exodus, at least, it gives you a left and a right turn lane to get out onto Webster and
Would
see
you-
properly.
have no parking up until that warehouse door there?
Yeah, this would probably be 50 feet, I would say,
Yeah.
just probably put something here. We'd make sure that, it wouldn't be in conflict with them trying to do some loading and things like that. And again, 50 is approximate, but I would I'm most concerned about visibility of that stop sign. If there's a larger vehicle parked even 15 feet up into there,
Okay.
which would be a legal maneuver. And that's really, we're only talking, an additional space, because technically 1 car can't park there, we're really looking at 2. So it's a net of just losing 1 parking stall, is really about it. People coming off of here, I'm probably not as concerned. I mean, you have the 0 setback, but if someone is parked right here, I think someone making a maneuver around will see that, and you still have proper street width, so I think we'll be okay on this. On the south side, it's just more on the north side.
Okay.
I'm guessing
Um,
the
any-
bollards there because of the trailing tires of the semis.
Yeah.
Right.
They come around the corner.
Yeah, this is obviously
that's
here for a
obviously-
reason.
That's obviously a bad corner.
But all of that will be restricted during the day when the
Correct.
semis are coming and going, so
Correct.
there won't be anything on either side there. The more spots we can save for weekends and nights, the better, because, I mean, it's 5:30 to 9 is when those spots get used in the evenings,
Sure.
and then Saturday and Sunday noons, which there's no trucks going through there at that time.
Mhm.
There are also very few trucks that make the turn onto Cedar. I mean, generally, they're going from Pomps and Badger and Riverside to Webster. They're not making a turn to the right there. So if we can save that spot, because either they're leaving their yards out to Webster, or they're coming into their yards, and if
Right.
they're coming into their yards, they're not gonna take a right on Clay and go around the block.
Right. Now, this maneuver still is possible, so if there is a truck coming from, say, 172 and they're just taking Webster up, they still can take this maneuver. The nice thing is that you do have a skew, so that swept path of a truck is going to be, lessened somewhat than if it was a standard 90-degree turn, so.
Right.
I guess, this is all on a 90-day trial, so if there is problems with that, I'm sure we will hear about it within a 3-month period. And if that's the case, we can always just, when it comes back on the 90-day, say, let's install a no parking near the corner, and, it would probably be the same like as the other one, and, I know, at least this way, we can test it out. It sounds to me like it'll probably get used anyway, so, we can always try it out that way, and if it's problematic, then, we can make some changes.
Just
Go
one
ahead.
other question for Dave. Up the street, next to the alley where there's that entrance, can we curb that in at some point right here? Because what I want to do is I want to create a traffic flow out here that doesn't allow people to go through here. So is this, similar to the, driveway on the other side on Clay where I can just put curb in here, or? Because this is not the alley, this was just something
It's a
from
private
Mary
drive.
Morgan Printing.
Yeah.
Because I want to reconfigure this so people are, forced to go the right way, because right now there's a lot of confusion with this, and, especially in winter. Winter, I just don't plow it, and that prevents people from driving through there. But, putting a curb there would be helpful to my traffic flow, and it actually allows me to pick up 2 spaces in the parking lot.
Right, yeah. I would contact Community and Economic Development just to make sure, because they may want to see a site plan, just to see what you have
That's
proposed. But at the end of the day, if you want to close it off, I mean, that really is, it's always the addition of driveways where you have to come to us and get, to get obviously approval from multiple levels, but closing is usually easier to get done. But definitely contact 6-4 on that, and, it's something like this. I mean, to me, as a traffic engineer, I like seeing driveways being closed.
I
Less
pick up
access
2
points
spots
usually
in
means
here,
better safety.
and we pick up a spot here as
Right.
well, maybe 2
Mhm.
spots.
Right, exactly.
So it just makes sense.
just looking at these photographs and having gone over that area a couple days ago, the whole street needs to be redone.
You mean those rails taken out?
You might bring a streetcar back someday.
So we need two things, close the floor and then a motion.
Yes.
Make a motion to close the floor.
I'll second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed, nay? The ayes have it.
And I'll also make a motion for a 90-day trial for the suggestions, thanks to the business owner and talking to all the other business owners of what they'd like to see.
And thank you very much, Mr. Schneider. You did a good job, and appreciate your contacting everybody around you there.
And
I
can I
will
just make a
start.
clarification on that before you second? Were you still interested or not in the no parking here at corner zone for visibility, that stop sign?
Yeah, that should probably be part of it.
Well, whatever
The map doesn't show that.
whatever the normal one is, yes.
50 feet.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. So that's in addition to this, so.
okay.
And I'll
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? The ayes have it. Thank you, sir.
Great job.
Thanks.
Okay, the next one, yuck. Can we just have a motion to approve of this?
Oh, you don't want.
Otherwise, it's gonna be a 2-hour discussion by David. I'm trying to get you folks home by 9 o'clock.
Good luck, no.
These are all related to construction, right?
Yeah, I can just show you a picture of what's going on, so you see what's happening. It does sound kind of confusing, but I talked to multiple people, and like, man, this one's a real tough one to word, but I'll show you what it really is. I think I'm still sharing the screen here, so.
Dan, can you see the screen okay yet?
yeah, it looks like it's frozen on the alleyway though.
It'll regenerate.
Okay.
This is the plan set for the Mason Packerland project.
Oh my gosh.
That looks thrilling.
Yeah, it is.
Exciting paperwork.
Yeah, exciting as can be.
Dan can probably, he knows,
That's a
he's
pretty
seen a lot of
picture.
these
Look at that
in
one.
his day. Yeah, I just have to find the right page. I think we're getting close. Yep, getting close.
What project?
This one. So,
West Mason and Packerland.
yeah, so what you're seeing here, this is West Mason Street. And this is the new right in, right out, left in access point. So this is NWTC, so it's right across from NWTC. They're reconfiguring East and West Campus Drive. This exists here, but we're taking this cul-de-sac frontage road and bringing it in to make a 4-leg intersection. And then, like I said, this access already exists on Mason Street. It's just that we're, instead of taking this cul-de-sac and people unfortunately turn around, we're giving them a way to get back onto West Mason Street. And then this was built. And this is actually currently open, so due to the change here, you can see we got a stop bar here, a stop bar here. They stop here, and they're gonna stop here and stop there. So there's a total of 5 signs. That's why you see 8 items A through
Okay.
D on here. So, because the 2 signs are actually one item on here. It's a 2-way stop. And the rest of them, I think, are 1-way stops. So that's really what you're approving tonight, and I'm doing that in essence as a.
You assume we're approving.
And that's
Oh,
just,
yeah, and
that's
if
for
you,
the safety.
and if you don't, I will have all the calls go directly to you. How's
Yeah.
that sound? Because it'll be mayhem. No.
for the safety of everybody working on that project, I will make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Dan. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay? The ayes have it.
On a 90-day trial. Actually, no. So, excuse me.
That's
Actually,
till the
if you look at the
project's
notes,
done, I'm guessing.
this one, yeah, we wouldn't do on a 90-day
No.
trial, so we'll move it directly to general ordinance.
Items 6 through 9 are terminations of the 90-day period for trials. Is there any controversy on any of these?
None of them.
Okay, is there a motion to approve 6 through 9?
Motion.
Moved by the lieutenant. Is there a second?
No, I'll second that.
There you go.
Just want to double check, make sure those were the ones I looked at.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
nay. The ayes have it. Next meeting will be July 17th. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Good meeting.
One of these days, I'm gonna say nay.
No, I just wanna hang out here.
Yeah. Well, might be
Just to be
better
the
than
one
hang
who
out
said
in the
Recording stopped.
Just to be on
Okay.
record as nay.
Thank you.